It's your girl ReXG back with another video, and today's video is going to be very interesting. Aside of it all, I'm just keeping it real because that's what we do here. So today we're going to talk about people saying that their children are blessings from God. Let's push aside religion as a whole and let's just talk about people being very ignorant and lacking critical thinking skills when it comes to bringing children here thoughtlessly. I'm going to read off a few notes because I was requested to make this video. So this video is simply out of education, but I'm also slightly ranting because that is probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. So Miss JC, if you're watching this is for you. You are hilarious and I love your thought process. So let's get with it. I know it may be coming from a place of love, but it literally reeks of ignorance because we all know how babies are made. But Ms. JC said, if children were blessings from God, then you guys wouldn't treat these children. And mind you, this is a long list. Just sit with me. You guys wouldn't treat these children like they're burdens, inconveniences, sudden surprises, or happy accidents, like you guys love to say. Marriage and relationship breakers, finance eaters, body wreckers, hereditary curses, competition, that's a huge one. Extensions of yourselves, you know, when people say I want a mini me, right? Or property, trophies, troublesome investments, or setbacks. You wouldn't treat your kids that way if they were blessings from God. They simply show up because you did the deed, not because they were sent. We all know how babies are made. The only way they'd be sent would technically be through IVF, adoption, or fostering. But mind you, the babies came here because of intercourse, because of sexual relations, a basic biological process. And like I was saying earlier, a very high percentage of pregnancies, or when people announce that they were pregnant, most of them were happy accidents, meaning these people were not intentionally trying.
Majority of people's pregnancies are unplanned. And majority of the time, people will tell you this. They will tell you that, we're really surprised the baby is here. We're happy that they're here, but we weren't trying to purposely bring the baby here. In other words, we were just trying to have sex. We were just having sex. Either it was unprotected or they took the precautions and they still ended up pregnant. And I need people to understand this. Even if you're using protection, even if you're on the pill, even if he pulls out, you're still going to have this high percentage in chance of getting pregnant. The only way you can absolutely not get pregnant is simply by not having sex or getting sterilized. Then your percentage becomes really low to none. But what I'm really tired of is people acting shocked when a pregnancy shows up and then treating the pregnancy as if it's a miracle. Now, the only time you could really consider it a miracle is if the person was trying to conceive and they just absolutely couldn't because of fertility issues, or they were incredibly sick and ill, and then the doctor told them that having a baby is quite literally impossible. And then the baby shows up because they wanted it to, but a baby just showing up unannounced, unintentionally, can't be considered a miracle. Well, when you're talking about the definition of it. And I think people forget this. Every single word that we use has a meaning. You don't just suddenly get to change the meaning because of how you feel about that said word. If the word angry stems from the definition of a very negative emotion, I can't make it into a good emotion. It's a negative emotion. No one should be angry all the time. No one should have anger in their hearts or in their minds. So I can't just suddenly change it to a good emotion because I feel like anger is a good emotion. That's not how that works. So you changing the word miracle. Miracle is a miracle. We all know what miracles are. You suddenly getting promoted on a job that you have gone very unnoticed on, right? Or you graduated even though it seemed like you wouldn't because, you were going through a lot during your classes, during your school, during your finances, having to pay for everything. Or someone that you thought was going to die during an incident and they actually ended up living. They ended up surviving it. or you almost died and you didn't die, they were able to bring you back, or you won the lottery, or someone you know that got hurt, they had a very low chance of walking again, and one day they come to you and they're no longer in a wheelchair. That's a fucking miracle. Or a blind person suddenly getting their sight back. Those are miracles, not biological processes. The thing is, we want miracles to happen. And if you're a religious person, you pray for people to get miracles. You pray for yourself to get miracles. I've seen people say, my life was shit until I've had my kids. So it took you to force another human to exist to finally make you wake up and say, hey, I need to do something different about my life. I need to get my shit together. They basically force you to. Children force you to mature. They force you to get your life together. And then half the time, parents don't even fucking do that, because in the process, they're ruining their child's life because they're not equipped to be good parents to this said child. So no, you can't really call it a miracle. It's just something that happened. And it's true. Miracles, they just show up. They just happen, but they're good. They're not sudden in a bad way. It explains why people say, I love my kids, but, or if I had the chance to go back, I would, blah, 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 fill in the blank. Meaning, they love the child because the child's there, but they also would have loved their life if the child wasn't there. Does that sound good? It doesn't. It doesn't sound like a miracle. It sounds like a mishap. It sounds like something that just happened in your life. And now you call it a miracle because you're trying to make the best of it. You're trying to make the best of a mistake that you made, like you guys like to say. Like the fact that, I don't know, for example, I accidentally amputated myself. So I'm going to call it a miracle that I'm still alive. I mean, I would love the fact that I could get my limbs back. I would love if I could live a normal life again and not as an amputee. But I'm forever stuck without these limbs that I lost. And it's my fault. And it could have been prevented. I didn't have to lose any limbs. I didn't have to be without any limbs. I didn't have to spend a lot of money on a prosthetic leg, arm, or foot, or hand, or whatever. I wouldn't have to do any of that. But now I have to. And I can't be mad at anybody but myself. So I have to say it's a miracle that this happened, just to basically feed this toxic positivity narrative to myself. And I'm not saying you having that kid means you fucked up big time. I'm just saying, if that's not something you originally wanted and you're stuck with it, you kind of have to live with it. Especially if you're the one that caused it to happen in the first place. I had many people say, yeah, if I could do, a redo, children wouldn't be in the picture. But now that they're here, I have no other choice. I have to take care of them. Because if I don't, CPS will get involved. And that's true. A lot of people love their kids, but they know that if they just suddenly give up or put them in the system, the guilt will eat them alive. And a lot of people don't even want to even consider giving their kids up. They just know that them being here makes them feel guilty because they didn't originally want them. So they call them little blessings or little bundles of joy. Now, if you're like me, you will never see having a child as having a miracle or a bundle of joy in your life because they're human beings. And everything that happens in their life is inevitable and unpredictable. And you're in that mix because you're the one that decided to bring them here against their will. And it's so negative in so many ways. And that's why I tell people, if you're going to do something like this, make sure you absolutely know what you're getting yourself into, so you don't have to keep feeding yourself this fake ass narrative as in, this is good, this is great, I didn't really want this, but they're here, and so I just have to make the best of it. Because that sounds like a miserable life, which explains why a lot of parents shit on people that don't have kids, because they want them to join the party. They are really tired of basically feeling like someone talking about their child-free life is them bragging or them rubbing in their face that they made a decision that they could have easily made but just didn't, or they just didn't want to, or they didn't think to. And then it comes with shaming those people that made a different choice. Me personally, I can never shame another child-free person or another parent, because at the end of the day, we're all adults and we're all very aware of the choices that we make. And we can always make room and have time to educate ourselves and to be aware. But there's also a reminder that not everybody is aware like most people. I've been in a room full of people that are extremely unaware, and it was fucking terrifying, because I felt like I was talking to a bunch of brick walls. I felt suffocated. I felt frustrated. I felt like no matter what I said, it would go right over their heads like a brick wall. It would hit the brick and just go right back to me. And I realized that every adult is not mature. And majority of those people in that room were parents, meaning no matter what I said to them, it just wasn't getting to them. They weren't understanding. And a lot of them admitted that they just didn't want to understand. They didn't care to, because it just didn't matter to them, the things that I was saying. But I listened to everything they had to say. I took in everything that they had to say. So it's just not reciprocated. So I need people to understand, when you're bringing children here and you treat them as a blessing, you're also treating them as trophies, and you're also treating them as objects. Because blessings, like a blessing is not a person, place, or thing. It's just an occurrence, right? A human being is not an occurrence. Now, human beings come here because of an occurrence, but they're not the occurrence itself. Does that make any sense? So you're using it wrong. You can just say that I'm really happy that I had my child, or this is me becoming a parent was a happy occurrence. But calling them a miracle or a blessing is very taboo to me, because it quite literally doesn't fit the definition. And I'm a very literal person. I like to use words correctly so there isn't any confusion later on, because there are many times where people will come back and say, you didn't use that word right, and so it threw everything off for me. I don't like being confused. I don't like confusing other people, and I don't like seeing other people be confused. If I see you being confused, I will quickly run over and I will try to help you understand, because confusion is a really negative thing to feel. Being confused makes you angry. It makes you feel dumb. It makes you feel unaware. It makes you feel lost. And it builds and builds and builds all these different misunderstandings. So if you're not confused and you just know you have better knowledge about certain things, something as simple as your vocabulary, you'll never be lost. You'll never be angry. You'll never not know. You'll never be unaware. You know, I don't like confusing people, and I don't like being confused. So hearing people say that their child is a miracle confuses the shit out of me, and I don't like that. But again, it's not for me to understand. That's just how some people like to address the subject. Them getting knocked up, or them knocking someone up, and them just suddenly deciding to just have the baby is considerably a miracle to them. But quite literally, it's not. It's not. You had sex while you were ovulating, or you had sex with someone that was ovulating. You pumped a seed into this said person, or you got the seed pumped into you, and then the baby became the result of that. So did the conception part, you knowing that you're pregnant and you carrying the baby to term, and then you giving birth to the baby. That whole process isn't necessarily a miracle. Now, it's a miracle that you didn't die, because you can do that. You have a very high rate of dying from giving birth to a baby, but the actual occurrence of the baby coming here is not a miracle. Especially for someone that is child-free. Someone getting pregnant and announcing it isn't necessarily a miracle. That, in fact, sounds terrifying for a lot of people, because not everybody wants a baby. So I've heard people look at a child-free person that ends up pregnant by mistake. It just showed up because they were having sex and they just got pregnant. They will tell the person, hey, look, before you consider anything else, just know that this child coming into your life is a miracle. Even if that person was raped, even if that person had the baby forced onto them, or if they were forced to carry the baby to term, or the birth control didn't do what it was supposed to do, whatever the reason may be, they will tell the person that the baby is a miracle, and that will make the child-free person very confused, because they weren't trying to have that baby, they weren't trying to get pregnant. So it really depends on who you are and where you stand, but quite literally, you can't really call that a miracle. And that's my rant. I won't really carry on about it. That's just how I feel. It's okay if you disagree. It's okay if you agree. Thanks for listening to it, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.